What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be going over how to get a front and rear strut tower installed on an E46. I bought a front and rear strut tower bar secondhand from someone. It's Active AutoWorks rear, and I was told it's Active AutoWorks fronts. There's no marking on it, so I don't really know if it's Active AutoWorks front. That's the front strut tower bar. This is the rear, and then these are the two brackets that mount the rear on top of the shock towers, and then these are the two brackets that mount the front bar on top of the front struts. As you guys know, I have a station wagon, so mounting the rear bar is going to be a little bit different for me compared to what it is for sedan or coupe owners. The sedans and the coupes, the carpeting inside the trunk is almost just like carpeting without any kind of backing. It doesn't really have much thickness to it, and it's relatively easy to cut. I've actually cut it before with a razor blade. It's pretty simple. The trim inside the back of my wagon is a lot more solid plastic. I believe it's plastic back. It's been a while since I've had this apart, so but I believe it's plastic, like molded, and then has carpet laid over top of it. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to cut out the plastic, but kind of leave the carpeting there, so the carpeting covers up where the bar is going in and out of the trim piece. Just to kind of give it a little bit cleaner look and look like it was factory installed. That's my goal. So that will be in the second part of this video. I'm going to go through tearing apart all this trunk of this car and going in, figuring that out. First though, we're going to work on getting the front strut tower bar installed, just because it's a lot easier. There isn't a bunch of stuff that's got to come apart to do it. So I'm going to get, we're going to go through showing you how to mount these plates up and then how to mount this crossbar up. So let's get to it. All right, so mounting your front strut tower bar, easiest part of this whole entire job. You're gonna have to take off your 13mm, your three 13mm nuts holding your strut in place. You don't have to worry about taking them off and anything falling apart as long as the weight of the car is on the ground. If you have this car jacked up while you're doing this, do not take these out because the strut's gonna fall out of the strut tower. But if you have the car on the ground and the weight of the car is pushing the strut back up into the strut tower, you don't have to worry about it. You can take these three 13mm nuts off. I already broke mine loose and ran them off most of the way. And then what you're going to do is you're going to drop your plate back over top of that strut tower itself. Now I want to tell you guys that what I'm told is an Active AutoWorks kit has two different plates in it. Obviously one has a cutout of it. That cutout is to avoid hitting the battery jump start terminal on the passenger side strut. So the one with the cutout goes on the passenger side, the one without the cutout goes on the driver's side. So you're going to drop your plate over top. Make sure that it sits down all the way. And then I'm pretty sure, yeah, you definitely cannot get away with using the factory nuts in there. They just don't fit in the cutout. So the bar that I got had nuts and washers with it. And you're going to have your washers and your nut. And you're just going to drop your washers in place in these little spots and put your nut on. And mount both of these plates up with washers in each space, and then the nuts in place. The only reason why you want to put the washers in there is because the washers kind of take up the pressing of the nut itself and keeps it from gouging into the aluminum plate, and kind of acts as like almost like a lock to keep the nut from backing back off again. So you get your nuts ran down, get everything tightened back up. And then I'm going to repeat this on the other side, and then I'm going to show you guys how to get the bar mounted up across the top. All right, and then once you got both of your plates mounted up on both sides, everything tightened down, all that's left to do, put your bar in place. The screws that I got that came in the kit are 8mm Allen driven. Just if you guys are dealing with the same kit or same style setup, 8mm Allen installs these in place. You put your screws in. Get everything lined up, and tighten everything down, and you are all done with the front. It's obviously, like I said, pretty straightforward. Probably the easiest part of this entire job is going to be doing this front on this car, and we're going to get into doing the back after I get done tightening this down. So let's move on to the back. All right, so we're now at the back of the car. If you guys have a sedan and you're trying to mount this sedan or coupe, and you're trying to mount this strut tower bar on the rear, you have a pretty easy job. Your carpeting that's on the sides of your trunk is relatively thin. It's not any thicker than, actually this is probably thicker than that as well. But The carpet that's on the sides is maybe construction paper thick, maybe a little bit thicker than that. It's pretty easy to cut through, so you're gonna have a lot easier job. When you pull back your carpeting, I'll show you guys later in the video, there's insulation on the strut tower, or on the shock tower here, or the top of the wheel well actually, that you're gonna have to cut out. If you're doing a sedan or a coupe, you're gonna take your trunk liner back, cut that out so you can get access to the shock tower, put your plates in place, figure out where to cut your holes in your carpet. Like I said, it's a lot easier to cut holes in that carpet, and then put your carpeting back. If you are a station wagon like me and you're trying to do this, there's a lot more involved with this. So all of this stuff in this general area here has to come off in order to get access to that shock tower there. I did this side already just because it's been a very, very long time since I've taken apart the back of a 3 Series station wagon. So I kind of had to jog my memory about how all that stuff came apart. So I have an idea on how it comes apart, and it'll make it easier for me to explain it to you guys. I will show you when we do this side how I went about making, lining up and cutting that hole for that bracket in the right spot. So we're going to get started taking this side apart, and I'm going to show you guys the tools that you're going to need, as well as where to, what has to come off. So let's get to it. All right, so first things first, we're going to go over the list of tools that you're going to need. If you have a European car, you're going to have a lot of this stuff already, just because these are pretty common tools. But first thing you're going to be looking to have is something to cut the carpeting and the insulation back with once you get everything apart, so you can mount up your brace part. Phillips screwdriver to take all the trim pieces off along the C-pillar, and as well as some of the stuff that trims along the back window. Phillips screws. Pick I use to undo tabs to pull trim off. A part of the trim in there has some locking tabs, and you can use the pick to get up in there and push the locking tabs loose, like pop them loose to get the trim off. An extension, 1/4 inch, some length, 4 to 6 inches, and then whatever combination or whatever 1/4 inch ratchet you want to use. And then you're going to need a T20, T25, a T30, a 10 millimeter socket in 1/4 inch drive, and then in 3/8 drive, you're going to need a ratchet and a 13 millimeter socket. This is for the tops of the strut, or top of the shock nuts. And then in order to put the bar on, the screws that hold the bar to the brackets are actually 6 millimeters on one side and 13s on the other. So you're going to need a 6 millimeter Allen. Whether you have it in an Allen wrench or a 1/4 inch drive or a 3/8 drive, it doesn't matter. You just need something to be able to hold the bolts for that. And then you're going to need a flashlight in order to be able to see what you're doing when you're taking stuff apart. And then the only other tool that you're going to need is going to be something. I have a rotary tool or a Dremel in order to cut the trim piece out in the trunk in order to get that bracket through. So tools you need. First things that you're going to start to take off are going to be some of the easier trims to do, like the trim around this hook here. Has some locking tabs across the top of it. Actually press up on it. It's pretty difficult for me to try to show you guys, but this piece of trim is actually pretty neat. There's 2 tabs here on the bottom where my finger is that slot down into the carpet, and then these 2 tabs are spring loaded, and what you're doing when you take it off is you're just pushing up on it, and it spring loads these tabs down and allows these bottom 2 slots here to come up and come off. So this comes off, gets thrown off to the side. Up in front here, ignore mine, I have air ride in my car and don't have this quite mounted up yet. This anchor here, 2 T30 screws inside of here holding it in. You're going to take the 2 T30s out, set that off to the side. This trim piece here on your D pillar, there's a Phillips screw right here inside the pocket where your roller sunshade goes, and there's also a Phillips screw here. And then once you take those 2 Phillips screws out, there's like a pop clip here and a pop clip here that you're just going to pop loose and pull this piece of trim out. And then the C pillar trim also has to come out, and that pops loose at the roof at the top with the same style clips that are on this, and then just pulls out from behind the trim here along the window. So I'm going to get these things that I just pointed out to you off, and then we'll get to the next pieces of trim stuff that has to come off. All right, so I got this trim piece out. That little anchor down, we got that trim piece out. I got my C-pillar trim pulled out. And then the next things you're going to start to take apart are up here inside the car. This side bolster for your seat back has to come out. It's also pretty simple to get out. You're just going to get behind it, whether it be from the inside here or the outside, and pull it towards the front of the car, and it'll pop out. And then once you get it popped out like that, you're going to pick up on it, and it pulls right out. And you can see right there, there's a guide, and then there's another guide here on this end. The inside guide goes in that little slot right there, and the outside guide goes in this slot right here. So we got this out. We're going to set that off to the side. And I wanted to show you the clip that actually holds that thing in place, because it normally stays in the car. In the middle of it here, there is a little, where my finger is at, locking tab. You press that locking tab down like towards the ground, and it'll pull this tab out. So you can see that I'm pressing this down and it pulls this out. And then this piece locks back into this square area right here on this trim piece. Actually snaps back in here. Just like that. So when you're going back together, you're going to push in this, and it'll press it into the body right there, and it'll snap into place. You'll hear it audibly click. The next thing that's got to come off is going to be this trim piece right here. It's kind of a pain because there's actually up underneath here some locking tabs that have to come loose, and then there's also a bunch of locking tabs on it on the back side back here in this area right in here. There's locking tabs. So you're just gonna have to pry up on the front ones and then kind of work this thing off here. It's gonna make some noises. Just be careful when you're doing it. Don't pull and twist and stuff like that. Try to pull evenly in one direction, like up. You just gotta be careful. The tabs didn't break off on that one, but I feel like if you twist the wrong way while pulling up on it, you risk breaking the tabs off. So just kind of work it off of there until you work in a direction, pop the front tabs loose, work on getting the next one popped, and so on and so forth. I'm going to get it off, and then I'm going to show you guys where all the tabs are at, so you kind of have an idea on where you should be prying at. All right, so I got this trim piece off. This is at the front. As you can see, there's a slot in it, so you can get your seatbelt out of it, or get it off of the seatbelt. These are the two locking tabs at the front. Once you get the side of the seat off, you'll be able to look up underneath the edge there where the seat sits and see these two tabs here. You're going to want to pop these tabs out and then push up on the front half of this. And then the rest of your locking tabs, there's two here, and then two here where my finger is. And then there's some more back here, locking tab right there, and a locking tab right there. The only way that I've found to get it out, honestly, because you can't see or get to most of those pieces or those tabs when this is in place, is to pull up on it. Obviously, I pulled up on this one, none of the tabs broke. I don't know if that's the way it's designed to come apart or if it's just what you have to do. But pulled on it, it came apart. So once that's apart, your next step is going to be getting the bracket that is over top of your seatbelt assembly out, as well as this trim piece back here. This trim piece is the one that's along the top of the window. So this trim piece, normally there's a screw in here. This screw is missing on this car. Obviously somebody's already been in here. It was not me. There is a Phillips screw here normally, and then on top up here, this is actually relatively hard to get to and or see, but if you look right down through here, through this window, there's a 10mm nut here. You have to take that 10mm nut loose in order to get this back trim piece out and this trim piece here over top of the seatbelt buckle. And you also have to take this Phillips screw right here out, and that's for this trim piece right here. And then on the other side, and then once you get the Phillips screw, the 10mm nut, and then the other Phillips screw on the back of this trim piece, all of this stuff comes out. It's two separate pieces, but it kind of all lifts out as one piece. So I'm going to work on getting those out, and I'll show you the next step after that. I also wanted to point out in this next step that I forgot about a Phillips screw that's in the front for taking this trim piece out that goes over top of the seatbelt assembly. So Phillips here, and then your 10 in the back, and it'll take this trim piece off as well as the back trim piece off. The last piece is you have to take off. I don't know that you have to take this off. I just have not found a way to get this piece off without flexing it more than I'm comfortable with, without breaking some of the tabs off that mount it, is this anchor here. inside the car, it's kind of hard to see. I'm gonna go around the other way and show you guys actually is this anchor right here for your rear sunshade. There are two T25 screws down here. There's inside this hole on the like outside edge of it towards the outside of the car. If you look through the outside window and look down, you'll see the two T25s. I don't know if I can actually see them here. Yeah, you can. Two T25s down in there. Take those out, take that out, and then you'll be able to get that inside trim piece off. So I'm going to finish taking this off, and then I'm going to go and show you guys how I set up the trim piece in order to cut it to get it to fit in there. All right, so we got our trim piece out. One thing that I want to point out to you on the passenger side of your wagon is you're going to have a power outlet. It's pretty simple. Once you pull the trim piece back, you just have this white connector here. It's just two spade connectors housed inside of a plastic housing. You just pull it off of the two spade connectors here on this, and when you're going back together, you just push it back on. They're oriented in a way that you can't screw it up when you're putting it back together and plug it in wrong. So now all I have left to do is cut out this foam here so you have access to our shock towers. We're going to cut out that foam, or sorry, not foam, insulation actually. We're going to cut out the insulation with their razor blade to get access to that shock tower itself and to the two 13mm nuts that hold the shock in place. Take two 13mm nuts off, put our bracket in, and then I'm going to go through the process of showing you guys how to put that trim piece back on and push it in place and kind of figure out where to cut our hole through the trim. All right, so we got our foam cut out. As you can see, I just kind of cut like the dome part or half dome part off just so you can get access to these 213s, and then I cut a little notch out of it down here just so it would clear the bracket itself. Got our bracket mounted up in place. Next step is going to be to take this trim piece that you're trying to cut, and we're going to put it back in place and just like underneath here along this bottom edge here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lean it back into place where you know, towards the direction of putting it back in, you know, mounted upright. And then once you do that, you can actually reach in from around either the front door or this back side here using a pen and actually look through the window here and see where that bracket is going to be hitting things. And then what I did on the other side is I marked it with a pen. Actually, I used a blue Sharpie. I would have preferred to have my silver Sharpie that I use at work, but I don't have one here. A lighter color is what you're going to need because anything that's a regular Sharpie isn't going to show up very well on this black plastic. So a lighter colored Sharpie, a highlighter, something like that. Mark out where that bracket is, kind of like draw lines around it using the pen to follow it, and then make your cut, go to try to put it in place, kind of recut and reshape as needed until you get your stuff cut out. So I'm going to put this trim piece back in place, and I'm going to show you what marking it from the other side and looking in through the window. All right, so I got it sitting back in there along the underside of all this trim here, or along this trim here, trying to get it lined up here with like where this is like a push pin that goes here. The car is missing it. Obviously, if you're taking this apart, you're going to need to take that push pin out. And then get it underneath this carpet here and lined up where it's supposed to go, and then lean it back against that bracket going in the direction that it's supposed to go. And then from the back side, you can actually look in there and see where it's hitting. And then what I did is, while I'm able to see, I reached in from this side here with a pen, see my hand, and I marked the back side of that where I like followed the pen around the outside of that bracket so that I can mark where the hole needs to be cut in that trim piece. And then after you do that, you're going to pull your trim piece off, and you're going to get kind of a, if you guys can see it, there it is, kind of a generic area of where things need to go, or where the cut needs to go in order to fit that bracket there. So I'm going to work on getting this cut out. I'm probably going to cut a little bit smaller than I need to, and then figure out, because I don't want to cut too much out. But obviously, this will give you a rough idea of where things are hitting, so you can get it cut. You're just going to want to cut, recheck, and just cut as little as possible until you get it all cut out properly. So I'm going to get this cut out, get it put in place, and I'm going to show you guys the finished product. All right, so finished product, trim panels pushed back in there. The little piece tab up here that goes over top of the stud and the body is put back in place. So this trim panel is actually all the way back in. I had to cut that side out a little bit further than I did this side because this, I guess just the way this trim panel is made, it's actually closer to the shock tower on that side. And you can actually kind of tell the fact that this is more curved and this is more flat here. So that trim piece actually goes back further over top of the bracket, and I had to cut more out because that bracket kind of flares out to go around the top of the shock mount. So I had to cut a little bit more out of that side, so it's a little bit more, you know, open to be able to see in there than this side is. This side's a little tighter to the bracket, but it is what it is. Sometimes that's how things work out. I'm going to get all of this put back together so it looks all, you know, complete, and then I'm going to get everything put back, and we'll get our strut tower bar mounted across there, and I will show you guys the actual completed product. All right, so we got our trunk all put back together. Trims all put back in on both sides along the floor. I put the floor panel back in. Bolts that hold the bar in are 8mm Allens. The nuts are 12s. I believe I said they were 13s. They're actually 12s. I've never driven a car at all with a front or rear strut tower bar. I actually drove one recently, but I haven't owned a car that had front or rear strut tower bars. So we got the front and we got the rear on this car. I'm gonna drive it. I'm hoping that it makes the car feel a little bit tighter. I don't really have a lot of experience with what this does for a car, but we'll see. If you guys have any questions about any part of this job, please comment down below. I'll be sure to answer any questions you guys have. I would appreciate it if you guys would subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later.